Hello, my name is Ryan Shaver and I'm with the North Carolina Masonry Contractors Association, and today I'm joined by Kel Hallman with McGee Brothers Company. We're going to go over all the judging criteria for the 2023 Skills contest that will be held April the 19th in Greensboro, North Carolina. So stay tuned, we've got a lot to go over with you and we're glad to have you today. All right, our first category we're going to discuss today is Plum. Now, we use a scoring app at the skills contest, and low score wins, meaning each time you get a deduction, that is 1 point. So really your goal during this contest is to get 0 deductions. So low score wins. That means if you come away with this project with no deductions and you have a 0, that's pretty good. That's where you want to be. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Plum. Now, we built this project on a pallet. That way we can transport it to Greensboro and you can see it there, and that will be the model project for you to look at before the contest. So this project is built on a pallet, but in Greensboro you will start right off the floor. So the measurements will come right off the floor, and we'll talk about that when we get that criteria. So let's start with Plum. We're going to plumb in 4 locations on the project. And Kel's ready to start plumbing, and he's at A. So we're going to go A, B, C, and D for 4 locations. Now, every time that step gauge is inserted, that's a point deducted. So your goal is to build that project as tight as you possibly can and not get any points deducted. All right, Kel's going to get started on corner A. So corner A, Kel, let's start with Plum on corner A. See what we've got there. So Kel puts his level up. What he's doing, he's checking to make sure the bubble is in between the lines and not hard lining. So the bubble looks good in the level. Now he's going to see if he can get the step gauge inserted anywhere in that height. Kel, what you got?
0.
All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to put a 0 on the top corner there. So I'm going to mark 0 with a Sharpie. That's what you want, is 0. So Kel, come around here to B and let's check corner B. What you got, Kel?
1.
All right, so we've got a -1 there, so I'm going to put a 1 on that corner. Now let's come around to corner C. We're just working our way around the project. We're going to, remember, we're plumbing 4 corners, so go ahead with corner C, Kel. We're going about 1 inch off the corner. We're not dead on the corner. We're going to set in about the width of the level, about 1 inch, and that's where we'll be plumbing from. So Kel's checking to make sure that the bubble is right in between the lines. What you got, Kel?
2.
So Kel found 2 off there, so I'm going to put a 2 on that corner. All right, and the last corner is going to be corner D. So Kel, go ahead and get started on corner D. So once again, he's looking at the bubble, getting the bubble dead in between the line, not hard lining, and then making sure everything's touching from there up. And the gauge is notched at a 1/16 of an inch, so every 1/16 of an inch is a point. So Kel, what you got there?
2.
He's got -2. So I write 2 on that corner. So if I go back and look, I've got 2, 2, which is 4, and 1, which is 5, and 0. So on Plum, we had a deduction of 5 points. Remember, low score wins. All right, our next category is level. We're going to level in 3 locations on the top of the project. It is imperative that you get your project complete, because we're not going to judge a project for level right here or right here. We're going to judge on top. So if you do not complete the roll lock on your project, that's going to be a max deduction of 30 points. So please finish your project. So number 1, we can plumb, but number 2, we can level. So we're going to get started off here. We're going to level in 3 spots. And Kel, get started. We're going to go right down the middle of the roll lock on the front of the project. So let's see what we've got. So Kel's going to look at the bubble first, make sure the bubble's dead in between the line, not hard lining. And then he's going to see if he can get the gauge inserted. So he goes to the low spot. He's checking it out real good, making sure that that's the only spot he can get the gauge in. What you got, Kel? All right, so Kel had 1 point, but you notice he had 2 brick that he could get that 1 point in. That doesn't mean we get 2 points deducted. That's only 1 point deduction. It's where the gauge will go in the greatest amount of space is at. So that was 1 point deducted. All right, Kel, go to spot B. So now we're going to go down the middle of the roll lock, and Kel's going to do the same thing. So Kel's got 0 deductions there. All right, let's move around to spot C, and that'll be the center of the roll lock on the short side. So far, we've got 1 deduction. So let's see what Kel finds on this side. 0 deductions. So we've got that same issue Kel was talking about. The brick had a slight saddle in it, but it was touching on both ends, so he did not get a point off there. So on level, our deductions were 1 point. All right, our next criteria is square and range. We're going to check this in 3 locations on the project. The top of the roll lock, we're going to range that. We're going to range from the top of the roll lock to the bottom of the block on the side, and then we're going to square it in 1 location in the lower of the project. So Kel, get us started on range. So Kel gets that level right to the top of the roll lock, and then he's going to look and see if he can get a point off. 0 there. All right, Kel, go on that side of the project. Let's see how the range is on the side. Kel's going to go from the top of the roll lock and range down the side. So he's got 3 points right there. So that's -3. All right, the last spot we're going to check is square. So I've got it marked off there, and Kel's going to put the square and then check this corner.
0.
Kel says it's tight, so that's 0. So on square and range total, we have -3. All right, our next category is measurements. Now, measurements are extremely important. We're going to check your measurements in 3 locations on this project. We're going to check the height, we're going to check the length here, and the length on the side. All right, so on this project, we built it up on a pallet where we can transport it to Greensboro. We use the twig at the bottom, but in Greensboro, you will come dead off the concrete floor with your height. Your height to this project is 36 inches. So Kel, let's see what we've got. And I'm going to show you a little trick that I use with the step gauge that helps us get a good accurate reading with the top corner of that brick. So Kel, what do you look like on a measurement there?
Dead on 36.
All right, so Kel's saying he's dead on 36 inches, so that's no deductions there. All right, so now we're going to do the length. So I'm going to use the step gauge as well. We're going to come on the front of the roll lock, and Kel's going to bump the step gauge, and he's going to give me a reading. It's supposed to be 39 5/8. Kel, what do you have there?
39 5/8.
All right, so that's dead on the money. We're doing good. We got 0 deductions so far. Now Kel's going to come around, and we're going to check the length on this side of the project. So Kel, give us what you got on the edge here on the front side. What you got?
We are 1/16 big.
So we've got a deduction of 1 point there. So in our 3 locations on measurements, we're -1. Remember, low score wins. All right, our next category we're going to discuss is full and uniform joints. This will be graded throughout the length of the project. So you have 3 hours to build this project at the state skills contest. During that 3 hours, you'll have a judge that'll be a journeyman mason making 4 passes looking for full and uniform joints. So let's talk about a full joint. As you see on the slide right here, you see a full head joint buttered. So make sure that you butter that full head joint and that you have full joints on your bed joint and your head joint as you're building this project. Now the next thing I want to talk about is uniformity. So if we look at the front of this project, we want to talk about how the joints are uniform. We don't have a big joint, a tight joint, they're all uniform. So I can look in 3 or 4 areas on this project and see that. Number 1, I look right here and I see that my roll lock is uniform with my block right here. It lines up really good. I look at the spacing of my head joints, they're all nice and uniform. And then I look at my roll lock. Coming all the way across the top here, they're all uniform. So that's what the judge is going to be looking for at the end of the project is the uniformity of the joints. And while the project's being built, he's going to be looking for full head and bed joints applied. All right, our next criteria we're going to discuss is correct design. Now you will be given a plan the morning of the contest. It is imperative that you make your wall and your project match the plan that you're given, meaning that every block and brick must match. So let's talk about that for 1 second. If I look down on the bottom of this project, my block coursing has to be correct. Then when I start my brick coursing has to be correct. If I get this turned or opposite, then I'm in a mess. So for every brick or block that does not match the plan, that is a 1-point deduction on correct design. So please study that plan very closely and make sure that you have your layout correct and that everything is matching the plan when you complete your project. The next criteria we're going to talk about today is production. Production is very important. I talked to you when we were going over level about finishing and completing the project. It's very important that you finish and complete this project. So in production, for every brick or block not laid, that will be a 1-point deduction. So please make sure that you can complete this project in the 3-hour time frame that is given. We have done this today. It's very doable for 3 hours. It's a great project, so please make sure that your production, you are complete. Our next category is tooling and neatness. Tooling and neatness is the only subjective category that we're going to talk about today. Tooling and neatness is going to be done at the end of the contest. I will have 3 journeyman bricklayers walk around as a group and judge tooling and neatness. Now let's talk about tooling and neatness. That way you're prepared to get 0 points off when you reach Greensboro. So here we go. So when I look at this overall project, number one, the first thing I'm going to look for is have all the joints been struck and tooled. And I look at the front of this project and yes, I can say everything, head joint and bed joint, has been struck and tooled and brushed. It looks really good. One thing that stands out at me that I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at how clean my units are laid. So I start looking at the project and I see one unit that pops out at me, and it's this unit right here. This unit has a smear of mortar on it, and it pops out at me when all the other units are relatively clean. So that would be something that stood out to me if I was judging tooling and neatness. So that's what we're going to be looking for. When we look at tooling and neatness and judge that, it's the whole project all the way around. That's the front, the back, and both sides. That does not mean we're only judging the front face. We're judging the whole project. All right, we're on the back of the project. So we're looking at the back of the project. Number one, the first thing I look for, has everything been tooled and brushed? And I can say yes, I don't see any head joints or bed joints that have not been tooled. If you look on the inside corner, everything was cut flush, which is what we want to see. Do not try to tool the inside corner. Cut that nice and flush and brush it down. Don't try to tool an inside corner. So we look at that. That's the way these inside corners were done. Now, something pops out at me back here that I see that I want you to be really careful of when you're building your project. I see a chipped brick right here. So if we look at that chipped brick, that's going to come into play on tooling and neatness. So I want to make sure that I lay no chipped brick. And we've got a tip in the video what to do with a chipped brick where you can use that. So please make sure you do not expose a chipped brick. So looking back here, that would be a point, and then a point on the front for the smear on the brick. So I would say a -2 on tooling and neatness on this contest project. Go ahead. The tip that I want to give you today is if you have a chipped brick, such as in the picture here, use that to fill in one of your 8-inch block that the brick is going on top of the next course. Make sure you use up your chipped brick. You will have 105 modular brick left in your stall for you to build this project. It does not take that many brick to build the project, but you must be very conservative on how you use your brick. So if you have a chip one, put 1 per sale, not 2 per sale, and you should be fine. Our next criteria is safety. Safety will be judged throughout the competition, the 3-hour contest. You must have safety glasses on the entire time while the contest is going on. That is a requirement in our safety category. If I take my glasses off while I'm working, and I'm going to give you this example, and I wipe a little bit of sweat and I put my glasses right back on, that was no deduction. But if I'm laying brick and my glasses are up top like this right here, that's going to be a deduction for every time we see that. So please make sure that you keep your safety glasses on. That's very important, very important. Now let's talk about another thing. You will have an extra 8-inch block in your station. That is for your tools to be put in. So I've got my 4-foot level in that. I've got a couple other hand tools. Everything's there nice and neat where I'm not stepping on it. So let's use the rule for example. If I use my rule and I check my project and then I lay the rule on the ground and I pick up my level and I go over here and I start using my level, that's going to be a deduction because that could be a tripping hazard. So I do not want any of your tools left laying, especially the rule. So when you finish with your rule, please fold it right back up, either put it back on that block or stick it in your pocket. That works really well. So please keep your area neat where you don't have a tripping hazard, and also keep your safety glasses on the whole time. The next thing we're going to talk about is our boots. You must have a hard sole boot on. If it's not a steel toe, that's okay. But I want a hard sole boot on while you're working, which means no tennis shoes, no open-toed shoes at all. You will receive deductions for that. Also, no cell phones, meaning if you have a cell phone, it is not to be with you during that 3-hour time frame. Do not have a cell phone. You can have no earbuds or an Apple Watch. No electronic devices are allowed while you're competing. So make sure, that's what we're going to be looking for when we look at safety. So let's review. Safety glasses on the entire time. Make sure that your tools are stored away in the extra 8-inch block given to you. Do not leave tools laying on the ground. Make sure your clothing is what is needed at Skills, meaning you have khaki pants, a khaki shirt, and you have work boots on. And the last thing is no electronic devices, period. No cell phones, Apple Watch, earbuds, anything like that. It's you and the project in the station. That's it. So that concludes all of our judging criteria for what we're going to be looking for at the State Skills Contest, April the 19th. Show up, show us your skill set, show us what you've learned in class. We're excited. We'll have a ton of industry representatives on hand that day to help with the contest. Please come. We're excited to see you. We'll have 118 plus students laying brick in this competition, which is great. So show up, bring what you have. Remember, low score wins, and we're excited to see you.